Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rap and Wrestling. It's your boy T the Monster coming at you live and direct, of course. And Monday Night Raw just wrapped. The April 28th, 2025 edition of Monday Night Raw just wrapped. And of course, we're going to go over it. So be sure to tune in. And of course, if you're new here, also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe here at Rap and Wrestling. We're trying to reach 10,000 subscribers by December 31st this year. So let's get right into it. I got my notes, of course, as always, and let's talk about Monday Night Raw. So the opening segment, of course, with The opening segment, of course, with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. Talking about their new joint venture that they have there with Bron Breakker. And of course, Sami Zayn comes out and he confronts Seth Rollins. He talks about, hey, we've been friends for a long time. Paul, I've known you basically since the bloodline. And Sami's basically saying, I've seen this kind of shit before. And Seth gives Sami the ultimatum, or the choice to leave SmackDown or be in Seth and Bron and Paul's way there on Monday Night Raw. And he gives them basically the entire night to decide what it is that he's going to do. A similar situation to what we've kind of seen before in some storylines as well, where somebody has to make a decision. They got to sit there and think, and then we got the people that are coming up to him behind the scenes, of course, throughout the night, checking in on them, kind of thing. Now, what I think this segment needed is, I think it did what it was supposed to do. It set up the night for the hook for the end of the night as well. I just wish that they used a different person that wasn't Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn always gets caught up in these kinds of predicaments where he has to make a choice and decide what it is he's going to do, and it makes me think, all right, what is this man's character? What is he truly about? But anyway, we'll talk about that later on in the segment of today's episode. But next, of course, we have Rhea Ripley versus Roxanne Perez, which I think was a pretty good match. Now, I think I kind of I've caught wind to what WWE is doing by showing all of these amazing women and these amazing women matches on Raw. I think that they're preparing for Evolve. That's going to be coming up as well, which is the all-women's pay-per-view coming up soon. But nonetheless, there was a great match, of course, between Rhea and Roxanne. You can see the chemistry there a little bit that they've had. I don't know if they've had matches with each other before or not, but you can see that, they're kind of familiar with each other. Also, one time for the NXT women getting a good look, on both back-to-back weeks of Monday Night Raw. Them, of course, it looks like they've been called up to Raw, and they're getting involved with top-level WWE talent when it comes to Rhea Ripley, Io Sky. We're talking about champions here, of course. Rhea, a former Women's World Heavyweight Champion, of course, Io Sky being a two-time champion as well. So for them to come up from NXT and get the main roster call and then immediately get pushed into storylines with champions, that's a good look for them. And then that's also a good look for WWE, just to kind of say that, hey, keep your eyes on these women here going forward. So one time for the women of NXT getting a shot over there on Monday Night Raw. And it'll be nice to see what happens with them going forward after Evolve, and what their characters are going to be and what their storylines are going to be and how they're going to make their careers. Next, of course, we have Jey Uso and Logan Paul. That segment where Logan Paul comes out, he addresses the crowd there in St. Louis, over there in Kansas City, and he basically says he's done everything in WWE except win the big championship, which is a lie, because you haven't won the tag team championships yet, you haven't won the Intercontinental Championship yet, you haven't won the King of the Ring yet, you haven't won Money in the Bank yet, you haven't done all those things yet. I mean, you've been at WrestleMania, you haven't main event at WrestleMania yet. For you to come out and say you've done everything in WWE but win that's some bullshit. You probably could have wrote that better. So whoever did that segment, you got to think about that, because casual fans like me, or not casual fans, lifelong fans like me who've been watching this forever, I know you ain't did shit yet. So, but I also get at the same time you're trying to build a story, so not to be too crucial on it, you just could have worded it better. But Logan Paul comes out and basically says he's done everything but become World Heavyweight Champ, which prompts for Jey Uso to come out, and basically Uso's like, I'd be damned if I give this belt that I just won and fought 15 years for to, quote, a punk ass YouTuber, unquote. So, and that would be kind of weird though if WWE did, from one random ass reason, decide that they would like to have Logan Paul go over on Jey Uso and then he's touting the belt all over YouTube. That would be wild as fuck. But sounds like we're going to get Jey Uso versus Logan Paul at Backlash, which is an interesting feud because I didn't think for them to put Logan Paul against Jey Uso for his first feud against the championship. Is it a bad booking decision? I don't think so. I just think that it's rather interesting. I didn't see it coming. I believe they can put on a great match. Logan Paul has proved that he's great in the ring. Uso, of course, has been improving now he has the championship, so it'll be interesting to see how his in-ring work changes and how his moveset changes. Is he going to be still doing some of the same moves? Who knows? But Uso super kicks Logan Paul there, ending the segment, and we are going on to the next segment, which happens to be the War Raiders versus the Judgment Day. So this match, of course, was set up by none other than the MVP of 2024, in my opinion, Liv Morgan, in a backstage segment in which that we saw that JD Madonna and all those guys over at Judgment Day are chilling in the clubhouse. Finn walks up and he basically goes up to JD Madonna. I'm like, yo, I didn't know you were coming back. And then he was like, yeah, I told Dom. I thought Dom would have told you. And of course, Finn looking out of place, of course, which is kind of like further driving the wedge in between everyone. And basically, Liv comes out and says, hey, I got up this match. I talked to, JD about this. JD went to talk to Adam Pearce, and we got this match, or Nick Aldis, whoever, and we got this match set up for you guys. Since she said, quote, since you're not a champion. And I like how she kind of slid that in there, like the little twisting of the burning knife to Finn Balor by bringing that to his attention. So we end up getting the War Raiders versus the Judgment Day, to see who would win for the tag team championships, of course, in which we saw the War Raiders go over on the Judgment Day due to interference from Penta. Now, Penta gets involved, of course, knocks JD McDonough off of the apron, which causes or sets up for a match between JD McDonough and Penta next week on Raw, which should be low-key a banger. Two great workers, two great workers, and two great people who know how to put on a good match. But War Raiders end up going over, of course, which I think was like, with the New Day, of course, being there at commentary, of course, watching the match go on as well. So I see that they're trying to build the tag team division. I just think that the War Raiders, it's not that they're not talented, it's just that I think their gimmick or their whatever you want to call it, their shtick, whatever, is not connecting with the crowd, because it's like, it's not something that's relatable. Like, how many people in real life are going around like, yeah, I'm a War Raider? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they got they're men with beards going around and doing their thing, which is cool. And it's like, I think that their gimmick or their style needs to be changed a little bit so they can have a fighting chance as tag team champions. Like, maybe they're like bikers or something. Like, they look like bikers. Like, give them the biker vests. Like almost kind of like how Gallows and Anderson were. If you give them that gimmick, like, that far more fits them better than them coming out in these war, and like, I'm just saying from a fan perspective. Again, at the same time, I don't run WWE, so I don't know. But moving on to the next segment, of course, we got Becky Lynch. She came out and addressed the crowd, and she went out and literally said she's the one that attacked Bayley, and which is interesting because we all kind of knew that. I feel like we all kind of knew that she was the one who did it. But I love how she started blending in some of the real life with the story, by mentioning Becky's out there talking about how she's not the diva that's being pushed to be the champion. She hasn't been champion too many times. She's not the one that's out here doing certain events and certain things that Charlotte or that Becky or that the other women are doing. And she tied that into her promo, which I think was fucking genius. And that's what kind of makes it more personal, what makes people get interested into this. Now, I think that what's happening with this is Becky is like, obviously behind the scenes, we know Becky and Bayley are probably like this, but I love that she's going to have this feud with her, and she's going to be able to like basically like feud and put over her friend for the most part, and it'll be dope to see like what that's going to be like. So I love how she brought in that real life story, of course. And then of course we got Lyra versus Becky at Backlash, which is probably going to happen once Pierce gets back next week. And Becky was basically saying, yeah, okay, yeah, we did the Irish tag team stuff, whatever. And Lyra she called her a bitch, I believe she did as well, while talking to her about this too. Now, I did kind of see Becky as coming back and being heel when we did see her come back at WrestleMania, and Bayley was attacked as we all kind of predicted. But let's just see like what happens with Lyra and Becky. I believe that they can put on a banger of a match over at Backlash, and then kind of, as I said before, this is kind of building toward the Evolve that they're going to have coming up soon too. That's one thing I've been noticing, like more female segments and things like that happening in WWE. So one time for the women. Moving on to the next segment, and also a female segment as well, which is we got the new and upcoming Stephanie Vaquer versus Ivy Nile of the American Made. Now, excuse me. These two put on a tremendous match as well. Lyra Valkyria, as quiet and smooth as she is in the ring, and as beautiful as she is, also, along with Ivy Nile, as strong as she is and unorthodox as she is, and I say that in a very positive light, that she is in the ring also. They put on a tremendous match. I think it was worthy of being on Raw. I think that's a match that you could also put on the Evolve match as well. Again, like I said, another female spot on the card, of course, just to display that women's division, showing how strong it is and how deep that division is with the Evolve coming up shortly. After that, of course, we got Pat McAfee addresses what happened with last week with him and Gunther, and we got F-bombs flying all over this bitch. Pat McAfee went on record and saying that he's a loyal motherfucker and that he's going to be the one to like basically have his boys back, you know, and basically he was telling Gunther like, you know, hey, what's up, you know, and Nick Aldis came out and got involved, and it looks like we're going to get that match versus Pat McAfee versus Gunther over at Backlash. Now, does this set up for something at Backlash with Gunther? Like, obviously Pat McAfee is not a true in-ring performer, or such a full-time in-ring performer, so I know this has to be something that's set up for something, because why would they put Gunther fresh out of a World Heavyweight Championship reign against a ring announcer being Pat McAfee? So maybe this sets up to where Goldberg comes back and he feuds with Gunther and sets up towards Gunther or Goldberg's retirement match. I don't know. We'll see what WWE does with that. But one time for Pat McAfee, of course, for dropping them F-bombs and showing how loyal he is for his friend. I love Pat McAfee on the mic, and then of course is fucking Pat McAfee. Like he's gonna do good, and he can wrestle. Now, lastly, the final segment of the night, of course, is Bron versus Sammy. Okay, so of course Seth comes back out from previously earlier in the night, asks Sammy if he's made his decision. Sammy basically tells him to go to hell, verbatim for the most part, and Bron Breakker comes out. Him and Sammy has a history where Bron Breakker won his first Intercontinental Championship from Sami Zayn. They come out, they get involved. They have a match. And well, Sammy puts on a hard-fought match as he normally does, but of course he ends up losing, of course, to Bron Breakker, and Seth Rollins gets in the ring, of course, and they kind of beat the shit out of Sami Zayn. Now, one thing I want to say about this before we get out of here is I am so tired of Sami Zayn being considered as a pushpin for like all of these different people in their groups and their factions. Like Sami Zayn is always the one who's getting his ass beat, as I mentioned when he was the one fighting Kevin Owens. Like, let Sami be like, I don't know if his story is to be the underdog or like whatever it is. I was like, and he mentioned that he wanted to be WWE World Heavyweight Champion and all that kind of stuff too. Why doesn't he at least get one swing at that bitch? Like Finn Balor got one swing at that bitch. Why doesn't Sammy, who's been consistent, who's been a fan favorite, who you can put anywhere in the world and he will get a pop, why doesn't he leave, even if it's transitional? I think Sammy deserves that. Like, he's been part of the roster for 10 plus years. He was part of the initial NXT call up, like one of the first NXT call ups when he got in the ring with Cena and injured himself and shit. Like, why doesn't Sammy get that recognition, and why doesn't he even get, you know, like more title shots at minimum, you know, at least win one, you know? But that's just me. I mean, but he does a great job at putting everyone else and all of his buddies and everyone else over and stuff like that, which is cool. But I just feel like Sammy could be that guy. It's just me. But lastly, the last thing I want to talk about is I think that they should do a third person with this group that they have with Seth and Paul Heyman and Bron Breakker, and I think it'll be a tremendous asset for them to go ahead and get Karrion Kross, go ahead and add him to this faction, and then it can be the three of them with Paul Heyman, and like that way Karrion Kross, he has something to do, he has someone that can align himself with, and then he's also getting that advice and that wisdom from Paul Heyman, while also, you know, like understanding what to do with his career and things like that too. So I don't know, there's something I'm thinking about. Like, we gotta figure out what to do with Karrion Kross. But in the meantime, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Rappin' Wrestling. We're trying to get WrestleMania here to Detroit by 2030, so let's do that. I'll be sure to see you soon in the next video. Peace.